You've been doing all the work. You're the one texting first, calling first, making plans, initiating every conversation, asking how their day was, checking in when you haven't heard from them. You're the one reaching across the distance they create, the one trying to maintain connection they seem indifferent about maintaining, the one carrying the entire weight of the relationship on your shoulders while they contribute almost nothing. And somewhere deep inside, you know this imbalance is destroying you. You know that constantly being the pursued while they remain the pursued is creating anxiety in you that wasn't there before, is making you feel desperate and needy in ways that don't reflect who you actually are, is turning you into a smaller version of yourself who's willing to accept crumbs because you've convinced yourself that initiating contact is just being proactive about what you want. But it's not. It's allowing yourself to be taken for granted by someone who's shown you through their consistent passivity that they're not willing to meet you halfway, who's demonstrated through never initiating that you're not priority for them, who's proving daily that they're fine with the relationship existing or not existing, based entirely on whether you're willing to do all the work of making it exist. Starting today, you stop reaching out first. Not as game, not as manipulation, not as strategy to make them want you more, but as fundamental boundary that protects your dignity and reveals the truth about what you're dealing with. You stop reaching out first because you deserve to be pursued by someone who wants you, because you refuse to keep auditioning for a relationship you should already have, because you're done making yourself smaller and more convenient, and less demanding to accommodate someone who's showing you through their inaction that they're not willing to actively choose you. When you stop reaching out first, one of two things happens. Either the avoidant steps up and starts initiating because they actually want connection with you and they're capable of pursuing it, or the relationship dies from lack of your life support, and you discover the painful truth that there was never real relationship. Just you working hard to create the illusion of relationship with someone who is passively receiving your effort while contributing nothing. This isn't punishment. This isn't withholding. This isn't playing hard to get or trying to make them jealous or hoping your absence will make them realize what they're losing. This is you enforcing basic reciprocity that any healthy relationship requires. Healthy relationships involve both people initiating, both people reaching out, both people doing the work of maintaining connection. When only one person is initiating all contact, that's not relationship, that's one person pursuing, and another person allowing themselves to be pursued without reciprocating the pursuit. And allowing that dynamic to continue is volunteering for anxiety, for insecurity, for feeling chronically unwanted by someone you're actively working to connect with. Stopping the dynamic by refusing to reach out first is simply requiring that if this person wants relationship with you, they need to demonstrate that want through action rather than through passive acceptance of your constant initiation. The avoidant will notice when you stop reaching out. They might not notice immediately. It might take days or even a week before they register that their phone isn't lighting up with your name, that you're not texting to see how they are, that you're not making plans or checking in, or doing any of the emotional labor you've been doing. But they will notice. And when they notice, you'll learn everything you need to know about their capacity and their interest through what they do next. Why you've been reaching out first, and why it has to stop. You've been reaching out first because you care about them, because you want connection, because when you think about them, you act on that thinking by initiating contact. This is normal, healthy impulse in balanced relationship. But with the avoidant, your reaching out first has become pattern that's serving their dysfunction while harming you. You reach out because you're anxious about the distance they create. You initiate because you're trying to maintain connection they seem willing to let fade. You're the one doing all the work because somewhere along the way you accepted the unspoken agreement that the relationship existing is your responsibility, not shared responsibility. You've also been reaching out first because you've convinced yourself that initiating is neutral, that it doesn't mean anything about the power dynamic or the balance of investment. You've told yourself that someone has to reach out first in any conversation, so why shouldn't it be you? You've rationalized that they're just not good at initiating, that they're busy, that they show they care in other ways. But these rationalizations are protecting you from facing painful truth. In healthy relationship, initiation is relatively balanced. Both people think about the other and act on that thinking. Both people feel desire for connection and reach out. If you're always the one initiating, it's not because someone has to be. It's because they're not motivated to initiate, because they're either not that interested or they're too defended to act on whatever interest they have. You've been reaching out first because not reaching out feels like giving up, feels like ending the relationship, feels like you're being cold or playing games. The avoidant has successfully made you feel like your consistent pursuit is evidence of your commitment and care, while their lack of pursuit is just neutral fact about their personality or their attachment style that you should accept and work around. But this framing is manipulation. Your pursuit isn't just care, it's compensating for their lack of care. Your initiation isn't just commitment, it's doing their share of relationship work in addition to your own. And accepting their lack of pursuit as neutral personality trait is accepting that you'll never be actively wanted, never be pursued, never be valued enough that they'll do the vulnerable work of reaching out first. You've been reaching out first because you're afraid of what you'll discover if you stop. You're afraid the silence will be permanent, that they'll never reach out, that you'll be left with painful confirmation that they don't want you enough to pursue you. And this fear is legitimate because it's based in reality. There's very real possibility that if you stop reaching out, you'll never hear from them again. But living in fear of this truth, while you constantly pursue them, doesn't change the truth. It just postpones the moment when you have to face it. The avoidant not reaching out when you stop reaching out isn't information you created by stopping. It's information that was always true. Information you were hiding from yourself by filling the silence with your own voice. Information that needs to be faced so you can make real decisions about whether to stay in relationship where you're not wanted enough to be pursued. What happens when you stop reaching out first? When you stop reaching out first, the immediate experience is uncomfortable silence. You're used to filling the space between you and the avoidant with your initiative. Now that space is empty. Your phone isn't buzzing with responses because you haven't sent anything to respond to. You're not making plans because you're waiting for them to make plans. You're not checking in because you're seeing if they'll check in. The silence is loud. It's uncomfortable. Every hour that passes without them reaching out is hour that confirms they're not thinking about you, or they're thinking about you but not acting on that thinking, or they're perfectly comfortable with the distance you're no longer working to close. The silence creates anxiety in you initially. You're fighting the impulse to reach out, to break the silence, to return to the familiar pattern where you do all the work. The anxiety is your attachment system activating. Is your fear that this silence means loss? Is your discomfort with not knowing where you stand? The anxiety will try to convince you that reaching out is reasonable, that it's been long enough, that they're probably just busy and would appreciate hearing from you. But this is your anxiety talking, not your wisdom. Your wisdom knows that if they wanted to reach out, they would reach out. Your wisdom knows that busy is excuse that means not prioritizing you. Your wisdom knows that breaking the silence to relieve your anxiety just returns you to the dynamic that was making you anxious in the first place. After the initial silence, one of three things happens. First possibility, the avoidant reaches out. They initiate contact, they text or call or make plans. This is best case scenario, and it's important to observe carefully what their reach out looks like. Is it genuine engagement or perfunctory check-in? Are they asking questions and showing interest, or just sending low effort, "Hey," that puts work back on you to carry the conversation? Are they following through on plans they initiate, or are they initiating vaguely without concrete follow-through? The quality of their reach out tells you whether they're actually capable of pursuing you, or whether they're just doing minimum necessary to get you to resume pursuing them. Second possibility, the avoidant reaches out, but only after a concerning amount of time has passed. Days become a week becomes 2 weeks, maybe even longer. Eventually they reach out, but the length of time it took them to notice your silence and act on that noticing is information. It tells you that you're not priority. It tells you they're comfortable with significant distance and infrequent contact. It tells you that even when they do reach out, it's after a period of time that would be unacceptable in relationship where both people are actually invested. The delayed reach out is better than no reach out, but it's still evidence that you're option for them, not priority, and that accepting relationship with them means accepting infrequent contact initiated mostly by you since their initiation only comes after weeks of silence. Third possibility, the avoidant never reaches out. The silence continues indefinitely. Days become weeks, become months, and you never hear from them. This is most painful possibility, but also most informative. This tells you everything you needed to know. You were the only one maintaining the relationship. They were never invested enough to pursue you. The relationship you thought you had was actually just you having a relationship with someone who was tolerating your presence without reciprocating your interest. The permanent silence after you stop reaching out is devastating, but it's truth that sets you free from wasting more time on someone who was never going to choose you actively, who was never going to meet you halfway, who was fine letting the relationship end as long as they didn't have to do the uncomfortable work of ending it themselves. Why the avoidance reach out, if it comes, doesn't mean what you want it to mean. If the avoidant does reach out after you stop reaching out first, you need to understand what's actually motivating their contact. You want to believe their reach out means they miss you, they realized what you mean to them, they're finally stepping up to pursue you properly. But the reality is usually less romantic and more self-serving. The avoidant is reaching out because the dynamic they were comfortable with has changed, and they want to restore it. They're reaching out because your silence made them feel loss of control. They're reaching out because their ego is uncomfortable with the idea that you're not pursuing them anymore. They're reaching out to see if you're still available, still interested, still willing to resume doing all the work. The avoidance reach out is often test. They're testing whether you're still there, whether the door is still open, whether they still have access to you despite their lack of effort. The test is low investment on their part. Casual message, vague suggestion of getting together, minimal effort communication that requires you to do the work of responding enthusiastically and carrying the conversation if anything is going to come of their initiation. The low investment test is designed to get maximum information with minimum risk. If you respond eagerly, they know they can continue being passive because you're still willing to pursue. If you don't respond or respond coolly, they can tell themselves they tried to reach out and you weren't interested, which protects their ego from having to face that they're the one who wasn't interested enough to reach out during all the time you were silent. The reach out is also often prompted by external trigger rather than genuine desire to connect with you. They saw you posted on social media and it reminded them you exist. They heard through a mutual friend that you're doing well, or maybe dating someone new. They're feeling lonely because their current situation isn't providing the ego stroking or convenience that you provided. The reach out isn't about missing you specifically. It's about missing what you were providing, whether that's attention or validation or easy access to companionship, without them having to work for it. Understanding this helps you not romanticize their reach out, helps you see it as what it is, rather than as what you want it to be. Even when the reach out seems genuine, even when they're expressing that they've missed you or they've been thinking about you, you need to observe what follows the words. Do they follow through? If they say they want to see you, do they make concrete plans? If they express missing you, do they then initiate contact consistently going forward? Or does their reach out remain isolated incident followed by return to their typical passivity? Words are easy. Follow through is what reveals actual intent and actual capacity. The avoidant can say they miss you while having no intention of doing what missing someone should inspire. Consistent effort to be in contact with that person, plans to see them, initiation of connection. Don't let words distract you from observing actions. The power shift that happens when you stop reaching out. When you stop reaching out first and maintain that boundary, power in the relationship shifts, or the relationship ends, which is its own form of power shift where you get power back by exiting dynamic where you had none. If the avoidant starts reaching out because you've stopped, the power has shifted because now they're the one pursuing, they're the one initiating, they're the one showing interest through action. But this power shift is often temporary. The avoidant is pursuing to restore the equilibrium where they're comfortable. And once you respond, once you're engaged again, they'll often revert to passivity because they've gotten what they wanted. Your renewed participation in the dynamic where you do all the work. The real power shift is internal. When you stop reaching out first, you reclaim power over your own dignity and your own decisions. You're no longer volunteering for anxiety-producing position of chronic pursuer. You're no longer accepting breadcrumbs and telling yourself they're satisfying. You're no longer making excuses for someone's lack of effort while you're putting in enormous effort. The power is in choosing yourself, in requiring reciprocity, in being willing to face the truth about the relationship, even when the truth is painful. Power is in knowing you deserve to be pursued, and being willing to walk away from anyone who won't pursue you. The power shift also reveals the truth about the relationship to you, in ways that your constant pursuing was obscuring. When you were always reaching out, you could tell yourself the relationship was mutual, was balanced, was working. But when you stop reaching out and nothing happens, or minimal happens after long delays, you can't maintain those illusions anymore. You see clearly that there is no real relationship, that whatever connection existed was maintained solely by your effort, that the avoidant was never invested in ways that would make them pursue you. This clarity is power, even though it's painful, because clarity allows you to make real decisions rather than continuing to invest in fantasy version of relationship that your effort was creating. The power shift means you're no longer trying to control the avoidance behavior through your pursuing. When you're constantly reaching out, you're trying to create responsiveness in them, trying to make them engage, trying to inspire reciprocity through your example. But this is an attempt to control what you can't control. You can't make someone want you. You can't pursue someone into pursuing you back. When you stop reaching out, you're releasing the illusion of control and accepting what is. They either want you enough to pursue you or they don't, and their behavior will reveal which is true without you manipulating or managing or trying to inspire them into wanting you. How to maintain the boundary of not reaching out first. Maintaining the boundary of never reaching out first to the avoidant requires strategies that support you through the discomfort. First strategy is redirecting your energy every time you feel impulse to reach out. When you think about them, when you want to text them, when you're tempted to initiate contact, redirect that energy into something else. Text a friend instead, journal about what you're feeling, go for a walk, engage with a hobby. Do something that serves you rather than serves your anxiety about the silence. Every time you successfully redirect, you're strengthening your capacity to maintain the boundary. Second strategy is remembering why you're maintaining this boundary. Write down the reasons. You deserve to be pursued. You refuse to be the only one trying. You need to see if there's real relationship underneath your effort. You're protecting yourself from chronic rejection of being the person who always initiates while they never reciprocate. Read these reasons whenever you're tempted to break the boundary. The reasons ground you in the purpose, remind you this isn't game, but rather protection and truth-seeking that's necessary for your well-being. Third strategy is having accountability. Tell a friend you trust that you're not reaching out to the avoidant first anymore. Give that friend permission to reality check you when you're rationalizing reasons why it would be okay to reach out just this once. The friend can remind you of the pattern you're breaking, can support you through the discomfort, can celebrate with you when you maintain the boundary even when it's hard. Accountability makes the boundary external as well as internal, makes it harder to break, because breaking it means acknowledging to someone else that you've compromised your own well-being. Fourth strategy is being willing to feel the feelings that come up when you're not reaching out. You'll feel anxiety about the silence. You'll feel grief about potentially losing the relationship. You'll feel fear about being alone. These feelings are valid and they need to be felt rather than managed. Through reaching out. Reaching out when you feel these feelings is using the avoidant to regulate your emotions, is making your discomfort their responsibility to fix. But they're not going to fix it. They're going to create more of it by being inconsistent or unavailable in response to your reach out. Feel the feelings, sit with the discomfort, let the emotions move through you without acting on them by breaking your boundary. The feelings will pass. The boundary needs to stay. Fifth strategy is having a plan for if and when they do reach out. Decide in advance how you'll respond. Will you respond at all? Will you respond but maintain coolness and not carry the conversation? Will you respond warmly but observe whether they follow through with actions beyond the initial reach out? Having plan prevents you from responding reactively, from being so relieved they reached out that you abandon all your standards and return immediately to pursuing them. The plan keeps you grounded, keeps you observing, keeps you requiring that their reach out is beginning of changed pattern rather than isolated incident. What their response to your silence reveals about their capacity. If the avoidant reaches out quickly, within a day or two of your silence, it reveals they notice your absence fairly immediately and they're motivated to restore contact. This is a positive sign that suggests you matter to them in ways that your constant pursuing was hiding. Quick reach out means they're paying attention to you, they're aware of the pattern of your usual contact, and they're uncomfortable enough with your absence to take action. However, quick reach out still needs to be evaluated for quality. Are they engaging meaningfully or superficially? Are they following through or just checking if you're still available? If the avoidant reaches out after moderate delay, several days to a week, it reveals you're on their mind, but you're not priority. They noticed your silence, that they weren't uncomfortable enough to reach out immediately. They might have been curious about whether you would break first, or they might have been managing their own discomfort with your absence before finally acting on it. Moderate delay is information that you're important enough to reach out to eventually, but not important enough to reach out to promptly. This tells you where you rank in their priorities, and the ranking should inform your decisions about whether that level of priority is acceptable to you. If the avoidant reaches out after long delay, weeks or more, it reveals you're barely on their radar. They're comfortable with long periods of no contact. They don't need regular connection with you. They're fine with the relationship existing in very intermittent, very low investment form. Long delay before reach out is evidence that accepting relationship with this person means accepting virtual absence punctuated by occasional contact initiated on their timeline, not based on any rhythm of real relationship. Long delay should make you question whether this is relationship at all, or just occasional contact with someone who's essentially acquaintance in terms of actual involvement in your life. If the avoidant never reaches out, it reveals they're either not interested, too defended to act on any interest they have, or perfectly content to let the relationship end as long as they don't have to actively end it. Permanent silence is clearest information you could receive. There is no real relationship, there never was mutual investment, and you are maintaining the entire thing through your effort. Permanent silence is painful, but it's also a gift because it ends your uncertainty, ends your hoping, ends your investing in someone who was never investing in you. Permanent silence is the avoidant showing you through inaction who they are, and you should believe them. Why this boundary protects you regardless of outcome. The boundary of never reaching out first protects you if they reach out, because it's revealed their capacity. If they reach out quickly and meaningfully and consistently going forward, you've discovered they are capable of pursuing you when they have to, when your pursuing isn't doing the work for them. You've gathered evidence that there might be potential for more balanced dynamic if they continue stepping up. If they reach out, but their reach out is low effort or inconsistent or doesn't translate into changed pattern, you've learned that their capacity is insufficient for your needs. Either way, you have clarity you didn't have when your constant pursuing was obscuring the truth about their interest and their capability. The boundary protects you if they don't reach out because it's ended the relationship that was harming you. You're no longer pouring energy into someone who isn't reciprocating. You're no longer making yourself anxious by being chronic pursuer. You're no longer accepting dynamic where you're clearly more invested than they are. The ending through their silence is protection from wasting more time, more energy, more of yourself on someone who was never going to meet you halfway. The protection is immediate even though it doesn't feel protective, because it hurts. But hurt that comes from facing truth heals. Hurt that comes from staying in denial about truth just perpetuates. The boundary protects your self-respect regardless of what they do. When you stop reaching out first, you're honoring yourself. You're saying, I deserve to be pursued, I deserve reciprocity, I deserve relationship where I'm not the only one trying. This self-honoring is protection against the erosion of self-worth that happens when you chronically pursue someone who's passively receiving your pursuit without returning it. Every day you maintain the boundary is day you're practicing self-respect, even if maintaining it is uncomfortable, even if you miss them, even if you're afraid of losing them. The self-respect you build through maintaining this boundary serves you long beyond this relationship. The boundary also protects you from the specific torture of wondering whether they would ever reach out if you gave them space. You're no longer wondering because you're testing it. You're getting your answer. The answer might not be what you want, but knowing is always better than wondering. Wondering keeps you stuck, keeps you hoping, keeps you in limbo. Knowing, even painful knowing, allows you to grieve and move forward. The boundary gives you the information you need to make informed decisions rather than decisions based on wishful thinking about what might happen if they just had more time, or if you just tried harder. What you should do with the information their response provides. If the avoidant reaches out and their reach out is high quality, they're engaging meaningfully, initiating consistently, following through on plans, you should still proceed cautiously. Changed behavior needs to be sustained over months, not days or weeks, before you trust it as real change rather than temporary performance. Observe whether they maintain their increased initiation, when things get comfortable again, when there's no crisis or threat of loss motivating their pursuit. Real change is sustainable. Performance is temporary. Give it time before you drop your guard or invest yourself fully again. If the avoidant reaches out, but their reach out is low quality or inconsistent, you should maintain your boundary. Don't let their minimal effort manipulate you into resuming pursuit. Respond minimally to minimal effort. Continue requiring that they do the work of pursuing if they want relationship. Don't reward low investment reach out with your high investment response. Make clear through your actions that the dynamic has changed. You're no longer doing all the work, and if they want connection with you, they need to demonstrate that want through consistent effort, not through occasional low effort contact. If the avoidant doesn't reach out, you should grieve and move forward. The grief is real. You've lost relationship you were invested in, even if that relationship wasn't healthy or reciprocal. Let yourself feel the loss, but don't let the grief trap you in hoping they'll still reach out eventually. After a reasonable period, a month, maybe 2, Accept that the silence is permanent, that the relationship is over, that this person has shown you through their inaction that they're not capable of being partner to you. Use the ending as catalyst for examining your patterns. Why were you attracted to someone avoidant? What in your history made you willing to be the chronic pursuer? What do you need to heal so you don't repeat this pattern with someone new? Regardless of what the avoidant does, you should use this experience to set standards for future relationships. In future, you'll require balanced initiation from the beginning. You'll notice quickly if you're doing all the reaching out, and you'll address it or leave rather than settling into pattern of one-sided pursuit. You'll value partners who are actively choosing you, who demonstrate their interest through consistent initiation and effort, who make you feel wanted rather than tolerated. The pain of this experience with the avoidant is teaching you what you won't accept going forward. And the teaching is valuable even though the tuition was expensive. The truth that the rule is protecting you from. The rule of never reaching out first to an avoidant is protecting you from the truth that would destroy you if you kept living in denial of it. They don't want you enough. If they wanted you enough, they would reach out. If they valued you enough, they would pursue you. If you were a priority for them, you would feel prioritized. The constant reaching out you were doing was protecting you from facing this truth. Your initiation was creating the illusion of mutual relationship when the reality was one-sided pursuit. Stopping your reach out removes the illusion and forces you to face what is. And what is, with most avoidants, is that they're not capable of wanting anyone enough to actively pursue them, or they're too defended to act on whatever wanting they have. This truth is devastating, but it's also liberating. Once you face that they don't want you enough, you stop trying to make them want you more. You stop performing for them. Stop making yourself smaller for them. Stop accepting less than you need from them. You accept that this person as they currently are cannot be your person. And accepting this frees you to find someone who wants you actively, who pursues you consistently, who makes you feel chosen rather than making you work to earn being chosen. The rule is also protecting you from the false hope that your pursuing will eventually inspire their pursuing. It won't. Years of evidence from countless people who've pursued avoidance proves that pursuing someone who's avoidant doesn't make them less avoidant. It makes them more comfortable being avoidant because they have someone who will do all the work while they do none. Your pursuing enables their avoidance. Stopping your pursuing removes the enabling and forces the truth. Either they step up or the relationship ends, and either outcome is better for you than continuing to pursue someone who will never pursue you back. You must always let the avoidant come to you. Never reach out first, not because this strategy will win them, but because this boundary will protect you. It will reveal the truth about their capacity and their interest. It will end the torture of chronic one-sided pursuit. It will restore your dignity, and it will either show you that they're capable of more than you thought, or it will show you that you need to move on from someone who was never going to meet you where you need to be met. Either way, you win by refusing to lose yourself in the exhausting, degrading pattern of pursuing someone who won't pursue you back. Let them come to you. And if they don't, know that they're not coming is the information that sets you free to find someone who will run toward you rather than away from you. Someone who initiates because they want connection with you. Someone who makes you feel wanted because they demonstrate their wanting through consistent action. That person exists, but you'll never find them while you're chasing someone who's running away. Stop chasing. Stand still. See who comes to you, and be brave enough to accept the truth of who doesn't.